Approved, please, by someone.
I'll make a motion.
Matilda made the motion to approve. I need a second, please.
Second.
Robert, all for, let me so saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. There is none. Thank you. Number 3, consideration of final subdivision plat of property located on First Street, Carlisle Division.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have tonight the Randy Carlisle division, which is .768 acres into 3 proposed new lots for property located on First Street. Lot 1 would consist of .302 acres, which is 13,174 square feet, and the lot is currently vacant. Lot 2 is .255 acres, 11,127 square feet in an existing residential structure. Lot 3 would consist of .211 acres, which is 9,175 square feet, and the proposed new lot is currently vacant. Proposed new lots would be served by an existing 4-inch water line, 8-inch sewer line, and an existing fire hydrant. Proposed new lots zoned R2. Mr. Ron Taylor here has got the surveyor, the subdivision plats. So Ron, if you would, please pass those out to the members of the commission so they can take a look at them. These were, the plat was included in your agenda packet, and so I hope you had a chance to look over it. And while he passes these out, I'll allow you to review it and then see if you have any questions. Thank you. All right, so as you can see there, our minimum lot size in the R2 zone is 7,500 square feet. And so all of the lots are larger than that. There is the existing structure there on Lot 2. And just for reference, this is just off the corner of Bradford Hicks Drive and First Street. You can see there on the vicinity map that it is very close to that intersection. But it does meet all of our requirements. As you'll see, it was signed off on by our Public Works Director and our Director of Water and Sewer, and meets all our requirements, so I'll certainly take any questions about this at this time.
Any questions about the plot from anyone? If not, it meets all requirements that Tommy just went over with us, and I would need a motion that this be approved. Motion by John, second by JJ. Okay, second by JJ. All for, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. There is none. Thank you all. Okay. Item number 4, consideration of final site plan located at 1194 West Main Street, Dollar Tree plan.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. So what we have tonight is a formal site plan submitted by Dollar Tree, and they will be opening up a retail operation where the former JD's Sandwich Shop is located, right behind Arby's and right next to O'Reilly Auto Parts. They are basically just going to renovate the building that the JD's Sandwich Shop was in. So as you all know, the parking lot there is very large, and so we're not worried about parking. I'll turn it over to Christian for further comments on this site plan.
So they have submitted a full set of drawings. They meet all of our code requirements as far as their fire, their egress, and parking, of course, which is one of our big concerns. And as far as we're concerned, everybody in our departments have looked at it, signed off on it, and okayed it, from the fire to the sewer, water, and so forth. So as far as we're concerned, they are good to go on that.
Okay, thank you, Christian. You all have heard from Christian about the site plan, and Tommy Lee both. And I need a motion on these that to be approved, please.
I make a motion, we approve.
Have a motion of Matilda to be approved, and I need a second, please.
Second.
Robert. Second by Robert. Okay. All for this plan, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign, and there is none. Thank you all. Thank you. Okay, consideration for final site plan of the property located in 415 East University Street, Diction site plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Christian has this site plan here available. I'll let him speak on that.
So they just got us a drawing in of what they're doing. Y'all can look at it right here. It's not an official, there's no subdividing going on. So that is Mr. Frankie Dixon is his idea is to put a commercial building on that corner lot of Roberts and East University there. They do have the parking out front, and they do meet their setbacks requirement on what drawing he has turned in.
Christian, one question that I would have is, they put parking on that site plan?
Well, it'll be parking out front, just like the rest of the buildings out through there. I don't know that he specifically drew in the exact amount of lots for 1,000 square feet. One potential client that he already has that's looking at doing that's a beauty shop, and the other one would be for rent. The parking would not be an issue.
It looks like they're parking along East University Street, just like.
Yes, sir.
So one of my concerns, Christian, obviously, is that it does not have parking on here. It just says parking on the front of it. We need individual parking spaces on here. And off-street parking, or on-street parking is not permitted. So, I mean, that would not be allowed. They would need to be parking in the, and also, have you received any kind of plans for paving the parking lot? Or is it already paved?
No, it's not already paved. The lot would have to be paved. But I hadn't, like I said, they just dropped that off here, and it was a little medieval, I would say. But I mean, I went over and talked to him and explained to him about the parking that they would need, and he just didn't have it prepared like he needed to, as far as the amount of parking. And they will be able to get it in there. It's a matter of getting the drawings corrected.
Can we make a recommendation that we not do this until we get the proper plan?
We could do one of two things, because this is not going to be acceptable.
No.
It's going to have to be a little bit better than this. So what I would recommend is either we could, because all I think that we need on here is the parking.
Yes.
And so in retail, since our amendment, we are now one space for every 200 square feet of customer service area, correct?
Yes, sir.
So how many spaces will this need?
So his total square footage is it's 40 by 50. So they will be 1,000 square feet
Okay,
per
I'm sorry.
unit.
Yeah, so he'll need.
He'll need five.
5 and 5.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I wouldn't have an issue if we approve this plat contingent upon, or this site plan contingent upon him actually putting his dimensions on here with his parking and showing his ingress egress, because it doesn't have that either. It just shows the street there. So we need to know where they're coming in and going out and where they're going to park. In my opinion, that's just how I feel about it, though. I'll let y'all.
How about the square footage on the lot?
What is the square footage on the lot?
He don't have it wrote down either. He dropped it off. I was, would have helped him a little bit if he'd have stuck around and talked to me, but he dropped that off, and, that's what I had to present to you.
Or we can table it. We've got three options that we can do. We don't have to take any action on this because, in my opinion, it lacks several of the requirements for a properly submitted site
Well,
plan.
his lot is definitely, it's a large lot, so he's definitely got room to do what he wants to do. It's just a matter of getting us a little better drawings, brought in for us.
So I at least have parking, ingress, egress, and lot size that he needs to put on there.
Christian,
I don't think we need to list everything that he's not got on there because we can take care of that.
Well, my feeling is that we should table this until he does present a proper site plan. That's just my opinion.
Christian, yes, I'd like to do that. Let's just table this for tonight, and if you would get with him, please, and tell him, what we need from the drawing, the site plan and all. Is that acceptable to you?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. We're going to table this one tonight. Thank you. Okay, consideration for request to rezone property located on Tom Davis Road from R1 low-density residential to C3 general commercial, Winningham request.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is one of the drawings that I submitted to you. It would be that one right there. Nope, sorry, Matilda. That one right there. And so this property is located on Tom Davis Road. This is the Kenneth Winningham property. And like I said, it is included in your agenda packet. And Mr. Winningham is here. And if you would, Mr. Winningham, please step up to the podium. And if I'm not mistaken, this is next to the old teen center building. Is that correct?
That's correct. When I bought the teen center back from them, I guess I was in front of the board to rezone it back to C3 at that point in time. I'd already bought the lot and it was already leveled down to the old teen center building lot, but I didn't get it formalized, I guess. Didn't get it said right, or it would have already been zoned at the time. It's part of the teen center zone lot now, and it was done before there was any, the rest of those lots had anything on them that was there. And all I'm just trying to do is make all one package at this point in time.
Mr. Winningham, do you have a proposed use for this lot in mind, or are you just wanting to get it in line with your other parcel there, with the old teen center parcel?
At this point in time, I would look at you and tell you that you have two parcels in front of you. I have been approached by somebody, and it needs to be zoned commercial for
Well,
that.
you're not required to disclose that information,
Understand.
but it helps us to know what you're going to put there, because if it's an unsightly use that could, potentially disrupt the R2 zone, then that's something we might not want to do. I will say that you have old teen center, Dollar General, Co-op, all right there at it. So there are commercial uses there. We did hand out notices to the adjoining property owners, and Christian did that. And Christian, did we have any comments one way or the other about this?
Every comment I had were totally fine with what he was going to do there.
Okay, so I'll certainly, Mr. Winningham's here, you can, I believe that's all my questions, Mr. Winningham, thank you.
Okay.
The board may have some more, so if you would just hang right there for me, please, and then I'll take questions, or if you have any questions for Mr. Winningham.
Yeah.
Any other questions from either panel?
And so what we need to do, Mr. Chairman, then, is we need to make a recommendation either in favor of or against the rezoning request of Mr. Winningham. Mr. Winningham, what happens after tonight is that the Planning Commission will make a recommendation to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. At the, I believe it will be the August Board of Mayor and Aldermen meeting, they will have a first reading on this. If it passes the first reading, at the September meeting, they will have a public hearing and second and final reading. So you're looking at around September, the first Monday in September, or that's Labor Day, so it'll be sometime around in that for it to be finalized.
Okay, we've heard the description from Tommy Lee, and I just need a motion on that we do go ahead and approve it.
Yeah, we just need either to approve or deny, however we want to
We'll
vote.
do it.
Approve?
John, Farr?
Yes.
JJ,
I second.
second, by Matilda. Okay. Motion. All right, y'all have all heard it, so I have a motion that it be approved. Let me know by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. There is none. Okay, thank you. Okay, number 7, consideration of a request to rezone property located on McHenry from R2 high-density residential to C3 general commercial. Winningham request.
Yes, sir. Mr. Winningham, come on back up. We got your second one. We got your second one on next. So this property is located on South McHenry Street. To the east, you can see is Central Park. And so it is directly to the west of Central Park. It has C3 on the north side there. That's Twin Lakes Telephone Cooperative. And the Central Park to the east, and then residential to the south and to the west. Mr. Winningham, if you would, do you have a proposed use for this property?
Yes, sir. And I guess one is subject to the other one, but I will need, space close to my, hardware store. It would be probably a warehouse, is what it would be. And I will back up and it'd be nicer if it was Twin Lakes site, but I don't own it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't own it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Winningham. Warehousing is a permitted use in the C3 zone. Would this be for you, it would be just for your use, correct? So no parking would be required or anything like that. So there's not going to be a lot of traffic going in and out of that lot. That's just for the storage for your business.
What
Okay.
kind of building are you?
Mr. Winningham, it would be the same procedure as the previous rezoning. Recommendation for or against from the Planning Commission. First reading at the August Board of Mayor and Alderman reading. Second reading and public hearing at the September meeting of the Board of Mayor and Alderman. Same time frame as your other one. And certainly take any questions that you all might have, or Mr. Winningham is at the podium if you have any questions for him.
What about the adjoining property owners? Have they been surveyed or received a letter?
I'm assuming that all have.
I have delivered all of these letters.
Any other questions? Anyone? Okay. I need a motion that we approve this plat as presented.
I move we accept this.
Second.
Second. John, you the second?
Yes.
Okay. Robert and John, get them, Tommy? Okay. All for this, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. There is none. Thank you. Approved. Okay.
Mr. Winningham, that's all we need from you tonight. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have the Slakers here tonight, sitting there, and they will be up in just a second. But what we have is we have a request to rezone the property. As you can see, it's on the corner of Mofield and Wendell Street from R1 to C3. The purpose of the rezoning request is going to be establish a short-term rental there. They have a cabin that they're going to move onto the property and fix up. And when I say short-term rental, more commonly known as Airbnb or VRBO. And we did hand out notices to the adjoining property owners, and Mayor Hayes is here, and he is going to read from one of the adjoining property owners.
Yeah, good afternoon, Planning Commission. I just, first, let me say this. We are, the Board of Aldermen on the agenda is looking very strong at the Airbnbs in residential neighborhoods. In fact, that will be in the August agenda for the Board of Aldermen to take a look at. Today, from a concerned citizen and local business owner, Mr. Steve Daniels he couldn't be present tonight. But as all of you, I think, know that his property would be across from this. And he just has some concerns about the rezoning on the real property on 303 on Mofield. And I'm going to read a letter from him. It just says, "Dear Mayor Hayes, at this time I have seen no plans on restrictions for the commercial use of the Mofield real property. Upon proper plans being presented, I would reconsider my position of objection to the rezoning. My opinion, without a proper plan in place and restrictions as to future use within and set out the plan for approval, I resist the rezoning. Thank you, Steve Daniels." And he CC'd Tommy Lee and at the Development District. And so, again, he had a banking meeting today, and he was unable to be here. And I did get a chance to talk to him, and I asked him exactly what the concerns was. And he says if it's not a success, what happens to the property? He feels like it should go back residential. And that there should be some precaution in case it fails. And that's what he is. His concern is. I appreciate the good folks here, and I'm certain that they're great folks that has bought and invested property here in Livingston, Tennessee, without a doubt. Airbnbs is something that across the state of Tennessee that has caused some issues and concerns with Airbnbs. When you have an Airbnb in a residential district, the question that I always ask my employees is, do you want your mother or do you want your dad living beside of an Airbnb? I'm for Airbnbs, certainly if they're, personally, if they are zoned properly and we have some ordinance to back it on exactly how it should be designed. But the problem I have in sitting on Tennessee Municipal League's board, seeing the cities as Murfreesboro and Chattanooga, Memphis, Knoxville, Franklin, some of the areas that are college towns, And we're a smaller town in that, but at the end of the day, a lot of times that folks own Airbnbs that don't live in this community and don't live in the state of Tennessee perhaps. So, and there's some cases, I'm sure this one would be different, that they have no clue really what's going on. And so when you pass these and folks start coming in at 2 in the morning and things of that nature, that creates a problem, and it creates a problem for our residents, and that's where we, elected officials or the planning commission or whoever it may be, starts getting phone calls. So that's my personal opinion. Like I said, the Board of Aldermen will be looking at this come August the 2nd, and it's slowly made its way to Livingston, and anything done tonight, I think, would probably be grandfathered in, as John Meadows was going to be here, but he couldn't be here tonight either. So that's just kind of where it is personally for me, and for Mr. Steve Daniels. Now, as in the letter here, if there's some precautionary plans that would allow this to go back to residential, then he would bring back his objection. But he kind of feels like I do, and that these, so I don't want to sound redundant, but sometimes these Airbnbs in residential neighborhoods comes out and is a disaster. And you have to ask yourself, do you want an Airbnb beside of you? And that's the question that we have, and again, not to sound redundant, the Board of Aldermen will be looking in this. I recommend anyone and everyone that before you buy a property, that you should check all the codes and all the zoning before the property is built. The same way as purchasing water, gas, sewer, things like that. So that's my 2 cents worth. I know these good folks here has made an investment. I understand that. Christian shared with me the nice log cabin that they had drawn up, and it looks very, very nice. But I'm just representing a concerned citizen and business person of Livingston. Thank you very much.
Is the Mofield property considered historical or anything like that? It's been there for years. It used to be the Mofield Hotel.
That's right. I can't answer that. Tommy, can you?
Mr. Slaker was shaking his head back there, so he might know more than I do.
Yes.
Well, so
Come on up. Come on.
The property is actually part of Overton County. It was actually built in 1890 on a gentleman whose name is...
You're talking about the property on Mofield.
Oh, I don't know if that property used to be a bed and breakfast. I apologize.
Yeah.
But the structure itself is a living part of history of Livingston. It was built in 1890. There is potential that the actual structure housed a hiding location for the Underground Railroad. There was actually a cellar that had very little inclination to really be a root cellar, and it was considered such. The cabin is also constructed out of chestnut, which is a rare building material as in terms of the chestnut blight in the early 1900s. In terms of the concerns of the mayor, we are well aware of the shortcomings of Airbnb. This structure would not only serve that, but would also be a secondary home. This is my wife, Victoria.
We moved in last May and bought 5 acres, starting a farm, starting everything. It's a lot of property for us to handle. We're not young. So we're thinking that after we've played out what we can, and we'll probably move into that home. And we have 6 children, so it's not just going to be Airbnb. It's going to be a lot of our children coming and their friends. I agree with his concerns, and I understand that, but we're not those people. We will price point it to where it's not, we don't want riffraff either. I like my quiet time at 10 o'clock, and I'm sure the neighbors would appreciate that as well. So we would definitely make every effort to accommodate and respect the neighborhood, because we'll be part of the neighborhood. We've looked for 6 months for property to put this in Overton County, and this was the last-ditch effort to try to keep this cabin in Overton County. I would like to see the history stay here. If it cannot, if it can't go there, we have exhausted any options for property. We would love to live in 2 places at once, but, fiscally, it would make sense, since we're investing so much money into it, to Airbnb it some. That's our request, is to rezone it. But we do plan on living there at some point.
And it's not going to be, it's going to be a log cabin in the sense, but if you're all familiar with Brotherton Mountain Road and Allgood, and the structure, there is a cabin very similar, and it was built by Dry Libby in Cookville, who actually are the individuals who participate in the Discovery Show Barnwood Builders. So this is not going to be a slipshod operation in any sense of the word. And again, we are residents of Overton County now. This is going to be our last hurrah. We don't have a second home in Florida or anywhere else. We live here now, and we would be respectful of the other residents here. We hope to, engage more in the community. The Airbnb is just a secondary part to help us offset some of the cost.
And afford our children.
And also know where we're going to go, instead of a home with hopefully a view when I'm 90.
I have a question for Tommy. Does this require a rezoning? The idea that they plan like a residence, that part of it they may Airbnb part of the time, does that require a rezoning from R1 to C3?
So the way that I understand it is that initially it would only be for short-term rental, is that correct?
Initially, it will be for both our children and short-term rental. I don't know how, you all probably know better than we do how successful Airbnb has been here.
So,
and it's an investment to us.
So the way our code reads now, the way that Christian and I and the mayor and our attorney, I don't think you can do both. I think you would have to choose which one you wanted to do. If you want to use it as a short-term rental, it would need to be rezoned to C3. If you wanted to live there permanently, you wouldn't have to do anything. It's zoned R1. If you wanted to live there and rent space out while you lived there, you can do that in an R1. But it can't jump back and forth from a short-term rental to a permanent residence.
What do you consider, what's the state guideline?
30 days.
We have to live there 30 days.
More than 30 days is considered permanent residence.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're going by here in Livingston.
So if I move in 30 days, that's my permanent residence.
That's the guidelines that we're going by.
And would that be them, or would that include or members of their immediate family, like their children? Are your children adults or minors?
Yeah, they're not the frat types anymore, thank goodness. We're out of that area. They're all in their 30s, late 20s and 30s, yeah.
I have a son that could move in for 30 days.
Really, our plan is really not necessarily to make money. The plan for even the monetary component of it is to offset it. We'd like to keep, and if you saw what the material looks like, and if you looked at Brotherton Mountain, it is a nice structure, and it's been here its whole life. And there were newspapers on the walls from 1900 that were used for insulation that unfortunately we couldn't salvage.
We tried a little bit of
Right.
it. But I think it would be a nice addition to downtown. I think it would give it more uniqueness. It's already beautiful, but I think it would enhance that area instead of it just being a regular building. So. And this kind gentleman has, we're looking for advice from him too to make it look more authentic. So.
Would you consider leaving it R1, as Tommy proposed a while ago about the limits when you could live there, the time and all? Would y'all consider that at all? And then your family coming in? I can just see a problem changing this to commercial.
Right.
I really do.
As long as there's not any, we're trying to be open and honest about what we're doing, and as long as it's not going to come back to us and go, oh my gosh, I just saw somebody, pull in and that's not the resident. We're just trying to prevent problems.
The 30-day residency isn't an issue.
We both work from home and we both
work from home. And we work
So we can
remote.
move into a building for 30 days with our computers.
Right.
So here's the issue with the rezoning, because residential uses are not permitted in the C3 zone. That's reserved for our commercial areas. That's why
I
the
understand
jumping
now.
back
Yes,
and forth
yes.
would not be
Right.
proper. We would need to, and like I said, if you live there and rent it out, that's totally fine.
Okay.
If it stays in the R1 zone. What we don't want is absentee rentals. I don't want to speak out of turn, but what I've gleaned is that we don't want absentee short-term rentals
Right.
in our residential neighborhoods.
And we want to preserve that neighborhood to where everyone is,
And we've been there. We lived in San
respectful
Diego
to everyone.
where we lived near the beach and where people would rent their homes and it would be spring break crazy. And
We don't want
we grasped that.
Yeah.
So, implicitly.
And I want to thank you again for making a purchase here in Livingston, Overton County. I just have to carry out some of these concerns. that I have.
No, that's why we have these dialogues and engage in discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. And so worst case scenario, folks, here's how it works. As they've talked about, the great city of San Diego, which I do love.
Yeah,
I love visiting there. I love home, but I love San Diego. You rent these things out, you see garbage on the side of the road, you see garbage in the front, you see garbage in the back. And then you have elderly folks. We're an elderly community. We have businesses right upside that corridor, and that's the issue that I personally have with Airbnbs in residential areas. I'm for it. We have Airbnbs in Livingston, Tennessee right now. They're doing fantastic. Love it. Great job. They're on the square. We found out there's some more too, but that's another discussion. So that's just my concern. These folks have made a nice investment in Livingston, and I've seen the pictures of the cabin that they're going to have. And I hate to be up here to try, after they've made this investment, to take it away from them. But as mayor of Livingston, I have to tell you the concern that I have about Airbnbs in residential neighborhoods. And most of you here have folks here and family, and you just have to ask yourself, and I asked Tommy Lee the same thing, and I asked Christian Mansell, do you want an Airbnb right beside of your mother or your grandmother? That's where we are. I'm sure these folks are great people and they wouldn't allow trash up, but if it goes and zones that way, the potential is there. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
So I think I want to go back to the Slakers real quick. And so after our discussions tonight, do you still want to proceed with the rezoning from R1 to C3?
and I think my response to that is, where are we if the town of Livingston decides that they want no more Airbnbs, that what's here has been grandfathered in, and somebody finds out that my permanent residence, I actually let somebody Airbnb it. What happens if you see my cabin on Airbnb.com and you all have approved, grandfathered in the others, and you haven't grandfathered in mine? That's my biggest concern. I don't mind leaving it residential. That's, I don't care what you call it.
We can meet those requirements.
We can meet the requirements, but down the road, what's going to happen the first time somebody sees someone that does a short-term rental there?
Is there any protection from that?
And I want to make sure I'm saying I appreciate their honesty. I appreciate their honesty. They could have came right in and not.
So, we're willing to follow the rules. We just don't want the rules to come down 5 years from now, and then all of a sudden you're saying we can't do that anymore. That's kind of our concern. Everything else we can be compliant with. It's not a problem. Like I said, our lives, we live close. If we have to live there 30 days,
Oh, and I'm sure we'll be using it some. I mean.
It's a shorter walk to the
Be
steel
nice to walk
coop
to Steel
and-
Coop instead of having to drive home.
and the back
right?
porch,
Yeah.
a little more exercise down too.
And just so you guys are aware, you know, if this were to become a permanent residence, if it were to be rezoned and used as a short-term rental, if you then wanted to revert it back to being a full-time residence, the rezoning process would have to be done again. But typically, down zones are not as difficult as up zone, which is what
Okay.
this,
Right, what we're
which is
doing.
what this
Okay,
is.
Yeah, so.
Well, I'll just rent it.
Yeah,
I'll pay
so,
myself.
so all that said, do you still wish to proceed with the rezoning? I guess is what we need to know.
No, I think we'll leave it as it is and turn it into a residence that we are residents in.
Okay? All right, you got your answer, Mr. Chairman. So officially withdrawn?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for your time, everybody.
Yes.
Nice to meet you all,
Yes,
too.
thank you.
Sorry.
Yes.
What was the final decision?
They have withdrawn they're withdrawing their request to rezone. And they're going to use that as a, so just for clarification, yeah, no, you guys are good.
Hey, thank you again.
Yes, sir. And just for clarification, the request for rezoning has been withdrawn, and they are going to use the property located at 303 Mofield as a single-family residential use. You need the secretary to sign?
I had a question related.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I had a question for future interest, future knowledge on that topic. The 30-day occupancy, is that just a one-time 30-day occupancy, or did it have to?
It's considered permanent residence if you live in a spot or in a house at one location, if you're there longer than 30 days at a time.
At a time?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean, it's just a big one-time thing?
So you live there 29 days, live somewhere else, it's not considered your permanent residence. That's considered a short-term rental.
I mean, if you live there 31 and then never live there again.
That would have been considered a permanent residence. It-
Per year?
That's-
Well, we're working on that.
I think that's the next subject that's coming up, right?
That's correct.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Number 9.
Okay, Robert. Discussion regarding short-term rentals in residential and commercial districts.
I don't want to sound redundant again, but this is something that John Meadows was taking a look at to try to stab at it. This just came up the other day. He was unable to write an ordinance that could come before the board tonight. It is my hopes that he will have one on August the 2nd, and it will talk about Airbnbs being in residential district, and it'll be up to the Board of Aldermen if they want Airbnbs to be in residential district. I think I've been real clear on my position on that, so we'll certainly give you a copy of it as soon as we get one and let you all take a look at it. But we're growing, and we're growing pretty rapidly, and so we're going to have to make a decision on these Airbnbs if we want them in residential neighborhoods or not. I'd love to hear any of your opinions that I can take back to the city council, or anyone can come to the city council meeting on August the 2nd at 6 o'clock, because I have got it on the agenda. Well,
So a lot of this will be up to, if we do it, I mean, you see a lot of those things where they'll say, you know, no spring breakers, no one under 25, you know, have to be a person over 25. So a lot of that policing is done by the owners. I don't know
And there's a
how
big,
we can do that.
there's a big difference too when you stay in Airbnb with the owners on site, whether you're in a
That-
guest house or
right.
whatever there is. Nobody's gonna get too rowdy.
Yeah, so keep in mind, this is not for just downtown, and I want to be really, really clear on this. I am for Airbnbs. I'm very hesitant about them being in residential neighborhoods. That's my whole point. I mean, but, you know, of course, if the Board of Aldermen decide that's what the route we want to go, I'll support it 100%. But when you just, we are an aging community. We have a lot of folks that, on a great scenario, would not have any problem. But there's one or two, that you wake up and, the yard's trashed, cars running all night, loud radio. This has been proven in neighboring counties that join Livingston. But like I said, we will enforce anything that the Board of Aldermen says that we need to do. I have an elderly mother, and I know that she now lives in an apartment, but if she lived in a resident, I don't know how she would feel about Airbnbs right beside of her and people coming in and out all times of the night. That's my point. Am I saying that?
So I just got online for short-term rentals in Livingston. Automatically, 2 pulls up. A couple of houses close by in the county pull up. So these are the ones that are advertised. So, you know, we're not sure exactly how many could be advertised in a different way. But I know for a fact there's 2 downtown that have been operating apparently they have very wonderful reviews. There's no, we have heard no complaints from this office. So, you know, that's the upside of what's going on here right now. And, it's, the question was, are they going to grandfather in if we shut it down? So are they going to be able to maintain? And the way it's looking is they probably are. But it is happening. It's already been going on. I went home, mentioned it to my wife, and she actually went to the open house with one and never told me. I had no idea. So, but it's working. The couple that we have are working nice, but the potential to get out of control is there. Just like anything. But we don't want to look at it 100% negative. I don't. I mean, I see it. A couple of different ways. But
Isn't there one over by the old Board of Education?
yes, ma'am.
So I'll just address a little bit of it if I could. Currently, in the R1 and R2 districts, owner-occupied Airbnbs are permitted use. And so basically, if the owner is on site, they can rent out a portion of their home as long as the living space is less than 50% of the total square footage of the house.
So that wouldn't apply to the people that, like they were here, if they had a house and then they had a house in their backyard? Is that?
They wouldn't be permitted to have two primary structures on their home. So that what they were proposing, I don't think would have been allowed. But I think after speaking with the mayor and Christian, I think what we would propose is that in the R1 and R2 district, that short-term rentals be a prohibited use, and in the C1, C2, C3, I1, and I2 districts, short-term rentals be a permitted use.
So, for me, if we don't get something on the books that specifies whatever, the board decides, it's going to drive me insane because, getting calls and not knowing what to say and, it's so vague and, you can read it this way. That's the whole thing is getting something in writing where, we don't have any questions on what we're doing, whichever way it may fall. We need to know.
Yeah, and so basically the difference would be is that unoccupied short-term rentals would not be allowed in R1 and R2, but they would be allowed everywhere else. And in R1 and R2, owner-occupied short-term rentals would be permitted.
And the definition of owner-occupied is 30 days per...
We're still working on, but that was, we were kind of looking at all goods ordinance, thank you, Mayor. Their regulations in 30 days is what they have.
So I have all good ordinance if y'all would like to just glance at it here. It's it's a pretty quick read there if you want to check it out.
This is really, really deep. It is very, very difficult for me to ask you to make that call unless you feel comfortable making that call. But
What I should have said, I'm going to interrupt you. What I should have said is that the proper procedure for us to follow to make a recommendation to the board and all that.
that is the proper procedure. But if you don't want to, then we could go another route. But
With regards to our zoning ordinance, though, we must make a recommendation to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. So if we don't, they can amend, the municipal code without our recommendation. But with regards to the zoning ordinance, they do need that. And I think that, and I don't want to speak for the mayor, but I think the mayor was really wanting to get this on the August agenda. And so he was maybe hoping that we could make a recommendation one way or the other tonight.
Tommy, you mentioned R1 and R2 and C, commercial?
Let me repeat that, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification. So, in the R1 district and R2 districts, the proposal is that unoccupied short-term rentals be prohibited uses. And in the C1, C2, C3, I1, and I2, but basically every other district, they would be permitted
In the commercial?
in the commercial and the industrial districts. I can get a hold of their planner and see what he says too. And I will say, I don't believe they've had any issues in all good. They don't regret passing that. I can speak pretty confidently on that.
Guests shall have no special events such as weddings, receptions, reunions at the location of a short-term rental property.
So, Philip, let me say this. John Meadows, our attorney, is taking a look at this. And that was just simply a guideline for him to go through. Him and MTAS will be bringing things to the Board of Aldermen. So, I'm the one that got that to give to John Meadows so he can kind of look at it and draft a couple going from a model from MTAS, perhaps a model from the city of Cookeville, and perhaps a model from the city of Allgood. So that's kind of where we're at. So I wouldn't get, we're not married to that, okay? That's simply just a sample of what one could look like. That's all that is.
And another thing is, you know,
Christian, Curtis, is there anything in these existing buildings, whenever, like I rent one of them and I come in, is there, say the guidelines sitting there, you can do this and you can't do that?
Well, that would be in the ordinance, so I just, to
just kind of take a little pressure off of you all, which I'm sensing, why don't we put this on the agenda for the planning commission? Let's let John Meadows do his job and bring back a couple of ordinances to you all that you feel comfortable with, that you could recommend to the Board of Aldermen. I think that's the right thing to do. I'll take it off the Board of Aldermen's agenda for August. It'll come back to you on August, the 4th, what'd you say? 4th Monday of August. And that way, you're not just passing something around the table trying to read in 2 minutes. That's not any good. So I think that's the right thing to do.
August 23, Mayor.
That way, no one's in a hurry. We'll put it on the September Board of Aldermen agenda. That'll give you a time to have a couple of samples. That'll give you time to read it, add to, or take away from the zoning. You may, if he brings you 2 or 3 samples, you may craft you one out of that sample and recommend it to the Board of Aldermen. Does that sound okay? I think that's a little bit better. So just, I guess I'm asking Mr. Chairman just to table it and discuss it again on August I think Phyllis said the 23rd.
Thank you. That's a big help right there,
Yeah.
Curtis. Thank you.
Okay. So just so everyone knows, any Airbnbs that come up in residential will be grandfathered in.
Okay.
So if you can live with that, and if you can't live with that, then there's going to have to be a decision tonight. I just got to tell you all of it. Okay?
Okay. What's the opinion of each one of y'all? I want to hear something, please.
You're going to ask us to voice our opinion right now?
Well, I think I would be comfortable saying no residential B&Bs or short-term rentals at this point, pending our further deliberations. Because we can always change that in 2 months. Allow short-term rentals in R1 property at this point. And we don't have to say pending anything. Because we can change that at our next meeting.
R1 and R2.
Yes, non-owner occupied short-term rentals as a prohibited use in the R1, R2 district, as a permitted use in the C1, C2, C3, I1, and I2 districts.
But the ones that you have in the residential are grandfathered in.
In existence at this time. Yep. And I do believe that there would be some general provisions around that we would adopt. But I think just as of right now, what you would propose would put it in the prohibited use category in the R1, R2, and in the permitted use category in the commercial and industrial districts.
I have another question. them? Will it be left up to them?
That's a great question.
Or
So,
will it come back to us again?
I'm going to make a phone call tomorrow to Mr. Meadows, and given the fact this passes that the planning commission says no Airbnbs in R1 and R2, then he will draft that up in his ordinance and go to the Board of Aldermen as a recommendation from the Livingston Planning Commission. So, and that's not what you wanted, John, Doc?
Well, no, because that sounds, all right, that wasn't my intent, I guess. What I meant is we need to do something so that if in the next 2 to 3 months before a final decision, we gather more information, so forth is made, if somebody comes in tomorrow or the next day, we don't get 2 or 3 that are like, we don't have anything against it, and then we decide in 3 months, okay, we're not going to do it. But I didn't mean let's do this permanently, because if it goes like you're saying, then the way that motion comes is recommendation to the Board of Aldermen that there's no short-term rental in R1 and R2. Having made that motion only to slow this down and say we need to consider it more fully, I'm not sure that I would like to tell everybody that already owns R1 and R2 property, you can't do anything with your property except live in it, or live in it 30 days out of the month. I'm not prepared to say I want that kind of regulation. We just talked about how most of them, the ones we have right now, are working fine. There hasn't been a problem. So I'm not sure we need to make a permanent restriction against doing that in case something doesn't work out, which hasn't happened yet. So maybe I should amend that motion to say for the next 90 days until the Board of Aldermen can make a final decision pending input from the city attorney and further discussion at the level of the Board of Aldermen.
So I think, then I mean, like Tommy said, then it would, it could easily come back to the Planning Commission. And I think that's kind of what I recommended a minute ago, so I'll take a deep breath and let's get some paperwork in front of you and let John do his part and give out a couple of sample ordinances, one that you can pass or one that you can draft on among the three, one of the three. And then go from there, because at the end of the day, to try to stay with procedure, and procedure is go in front of the planning commission, and a planning commission recommends something to the Board of Aldermen. That's procedure. That's what we have done for a very, very long time.
Is it out of the question, I mean, I'm just hypothetically saying this, that Overton County couldn't possibly have hotels or something like that come back to the county?
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, our zoning laws are clear. I mean, we've had some interest in hotels, but for one reason or another, whether it was property expense or it was, most of the time, to be quite honest with you, it's been the expense of the land owned by the property owner that is kind of took some detours. So I'll agree with what Doc Clough says. I mean, yes, we need places that you can come to Livingston and spend the night and have a nice night and spend days, and we've got some of those. We've got some of those right now in residential areas. We have some of those in commercial areas. The whole point why I raise this objection is as simple, is residential neighborhoods. I mean, all of you all, I think, live in a residential neighborhood, and I have to, I pray for the best, but I know that sometimes you can get the worst. And that's why this is a deep subject. So even if the Board of even if tonight you made a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, it would still take 2 months to get it passed through to where it's in the law, because of the first reading, public hearing, and then a second reading. So,
That's important, because I wouldn't want to pull the rug out from under this couple that was here today. We kind of gave them direction when they left, I think, with the understanding that they're going to live there for 30 days, probably could.
Yeah, but that doesn't even apply to what we're talking about right now, because that's already okay, correct?
Owner-occupied short-term rentals in R1, R2.
But see, we've also, as you know, Curtis, we've also got, this, what's probably going to be a fairly long-term arrangement between the hospital and Lincoln Memorial University, where we have these adult medical students, some families coming here to stay several months out of the year. And they're not gonna wanna stay in a hotel in Cookville, they're gonna wanna stay in more of a residential looking place. And VRBO and Airbnbs would be the perfect thing for these people, because they're not gonna have to sign, long-term leases, they're gonna have to buy something for 6 months.
it's cheaper,
Yeah, and
more affordable.
of course, they're looking for affordable stuff. The only reason I made that motion is so if we table this, it doesn't stay tabled for, ever, and we don't do anything with it, because I sense from what you said, from what Christian said, is that we need to do something, because these are going to be coming, and you need direction, because
So my recommendation is still the same. I would like to see the planning commission just table this for now. Give John Meadows, our general counsel, time to draft up a couple, and go from there.
withdraw my motion. I withdraw my motion.
So, Mr. Chairman, fellas, if we can just put it on the agenda for August 23rd, is that what you said? 23rd. And I'll make sure everyone gets some copies of the drafted ordinances. And then you can talk about it then. Is that okay?
You're going to get everyone in the committee a copy?
Yeah. When John has a couple of them wrote up,
Okay.
or at least one that he can stand behind and recommend, maybe that MTAS has done, or if he's pulled a little bit out of some of our neighboring communities,
Okay.
and then that way you all can take a look at it.
Okay. So we'll table this tonight.
Yeah, I think that's what Dr. Clough wanted to
Okay.
do.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for a long discussion, folks.
Okay.
We don't have a vice chairman,
Okay.
and plus we need to re-elect everybody else.
All right. It's election night tonight, so we need to elect officers for the coming year, or whatever, so.
I'd like to make a motion that Philip continue as chairman of this committee.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Those opposed? Aye. Okay, all right. Okay, we'll give it another go. Go ahead, Tommy.
All right, so we've got Matilda Speck for Philip McCormick as chairman. Robert Jolly then makes a motion to the nomination cease and that Mr. McCormick be elected by acclamation, so I need a second for Mr. Jolly's motion. No, I need a second for your motion,
Oh,
so
okay.
anybody but you, okay? All right, now we can vote on it, Mr. Chairman.
Secretary, we got it.
We
You're
need-
gonna
We
leave
need to
him?
vote on you
We
first.
need to vote.
All right, all for Philip McCormick as chairman, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, like sign, there's one. Yes, okay. All right. Are we set on all the rest of them now?
No, we need a vice chairman. That's.
Vice chairman,
Yeah, because
okay.
Ms. Jean resigned.
Vice chairman,
Yeah, she did, didn't she?
Who's seniority on the board?
I'm the secretary already.
Matilda?
Matilda or Ricky Mack, they've been here as long as I have.
Yeah,
Who is it?
Who what?
Vice Chairman.
I think any of them has been on there long enough.
We got, all right, we have Matilda, Vice Chairman.
So you're nominating?
Yeah, I am.
All right.
Yeah,
Second.
so second, John, all for?
Hang on just a second. So we'll
Okay.
need, so
Okay,
Chairman McCormick makes a motion to nominate Matilda Speck for the office of vice chair. John Clough makes a motion that all nominations cease and Matilda Speck be elected by acclamation, and we'll need a second for Alderman Clough's motion, and we got JJ on that. All right, now we can vote, Mr. Chairman.
we got a secretary coming up.
We need to vote on Matilda real quick.
Matilda first? Okay, all for Matilda, Vice Chairman. Aye. Those opposed, like sign, none. Matilda, you're elected.
I appreciate that.
Okay, all right.
Now we need secretary, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, nomination for secretary, we need the floor open for it.
Robert Jolly's our current secretary, doing a great job.
nominate Robert.
Robert, JJ, Robert. Need a got a second?
I second.
Matilda, all
And then-
for?
and then
Aye.
second.
Those opposed, like sign, there is none. Robert, secretary. That get them all, Tony?
Got them all,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
okay.
Just one thing, I failed.
I introduced Ms. Richardson to the board. I failed to introduce your committee members with you. You may know them all. Dr. John Clough, to my right, but to his right is Mr. J.J. Hollers, Mr. Robert Jolly, Mr. Philip McCormick, and of course you have Mr. Tommy Lee, which is our planner from Upper Cumberland Development District. And to your left is Miss Matilda Speck. And to your right is Miss Phyllis Looper. Now,